there's there's so many things that I learned in those days of, running that property. I call it my hazing. We didn't have Airbnb back then. It was all about direct booking. It was all about customer relationships. And we had to keep the properties in top-notch shape, otherwise complaints and reviews suffered. And, owners really wanted to have, top revenue. So it was an incredible experience. And, I've just kind of stuck around the industry, got my real estate license, bought some of my own properties. And then now my business partner and I with Stela, we really help owners who need help with management create that, maximum revenue, incredible place to stay, as well as, let it be hands off so that, they're not really putting all their time into running their properties day to day. So that's really about me. My goal is to continue to expand my short-term rental portfolio, continue to serve people in the real estate and help them buy and sell short-term rental properties, grow our Savvy team, and really just continue to bring value to this community. So this is the Savvy team. Some of them, we've actually have some new people that are not here, but we can serve you guys wherever you are wanting to purchase, whatever market for short-term rentals you would like to purchase in the United States. We can help you. We have the people, we have the team that have the knowledge. Everyone on the team is licensed realtor. They also invest in short-term rentals themselves, and they are the experts. This is really a niche. And most realtors just don't understand the ins and outs of short-term rentals. They don't understand, revenue projections, regulations, amenities, design, setup, all the things that really go into making a short-term rental successful. And these are the people that do. So if you need help, if you want to just have a conversation, or if you have a market that you're targeting, our team can absolutely help you anywhere in the country. Okay. All right, so I just want to share a quick little quote that I love. And, I love that you guys are all here showing up for your goals. You want to learn, you want to educate yourself to be better. And this is Jim Rohn's, one of my favorite mentors, read all his books, all of his teachings. He actually mentored Tony Robbins. And his quote, "We must all suffer one of two pains, the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. The difference is discipline weighs ounces while regret weighs tons." And so, you're being disciplined by just educating yourself and, again, showing up, and just happy to have you guys. So thank you so much again for being here. Dare we put in the chat where you guys are from? Let's see. All right. Welcome, Trish. Thank you for sharing in the chat. All right, so now we're going to go look at that table that I showed you guys. Elena from Charleston, welcome. Awesome. Lucas in Nashville. Oh, I got to go back to Nashville. I'll be there for the short-term rental conference in July with Bill Faith's team. All right, so here's a quick little table to show you guys, just a quick overview of the differences between self-managed, co-host, property management. We're going to go into each of these in depth, okay? But just kind of want to show you guys a quick little breakdown of what each of these offer and some of the pros and cons and the costs for them, okay? So self-managed is where you're going to just completely do it yourself. Co-host, you're going to have maybe a person that, can co-host with you and help you, but you're still, at the end of the day, everything rises and falls on you. And then a property manager is going to, really help you with all aspects, and it's going to be hands-off. So we're going to go into each of these in depth. So talking about self-management. Self-management is where you got to think of yourself as the business owner. And each property that you own is its own short-term rental business, okay? And you, at the end of the day, are the owner of that business, and you run everything for that business, okay? Any business owners in here? Would love to know what you do if you have a business. And a lot of people go into short-term rentals thinking that, it's going to be passive, or, it's not going to be like starting a business, but it absolutely is like starting a business. And you can, a couple ways you can get into short-term rentals. You can buy a property that's not in service, that's not currently a vacation rental, set that property up, launch it, list it, market it, manage it. Or you can buy a property that's already, a rental property and transition that into, an already running business, right? You don't need to set it up and design it and furnish it. Maybe you make some tweaks. Maybe it's completely turnkey. But those are, a couple ways that you're going to get into it. So self-managing, you're handling everything: marketing, bookings, guest care, communication, handling all the cleaners, all the maintenance, all the finances, paying the taxes, permitting, everything that goes into managing that property is going to be your responsibility. So some pros are, you got full control. You can control how your day-to-day operations run, how much revenue you're getting, your marketing, how your listing looks. You're not paying any management fees, and you're directly connecting with your customer, right? And that's really valuable because now you have relationships, and over time, just like any business, you start to create happy customers who want to come back. And I think that that's really great because you can really put energy into those relationships and keep that coming. Okay. Some cons are it's very time intensive, right? It is like running a business. And if you don't have the proper, systems and teams and automation set up, it could be taking all your time. And this is, at the end of the day, a hospitality business. So it's 24/7. And guests don't care if it's midnight. They want to ask a question, or they want to get a hold of you, or they're locked out, or they didn't read their instructions, or whatever is going to happen, right? So many things do. So it's time intensive. You got to learn, all the short-term rental platforms, the technology, how the channels operate, how to do direct booking if that's something that's important to you, all the compliance laws. Like in Florida, we have a state sales tax, we have a local county tourism tax. We've got we've got 4 different certificates that are required for each property. You've got to maintain and pay all of those taxes and permits. Okay. And it is a little bit of technical stuff, when you're really running it well and you've got the softwares, you got to kind of be a little techie. That is one of the cons if you're not techie. And then your average cost. So your average cost is really going to be just your software subscription. So if you have cleaning software, maintenance software, property management software, lock software, those types of things are going to run you, $50, $150, maybe $200 a month, depending, on what all softwares you have. And just hidden costs is just your time, your time or your team's time, and emergency repairs, things that you didn't really think about. Over the weekend, I had one of my properties, the lock malfunctioned. The batteries were fine. Everything was fine. It's an oceanfront property. So maybe the salt air just got to it, but I do have a backup lockbox. I was able to get them in, but a hidden cost is they were frustrated. They were tired. It was late. They had to call. I had to walk them through getting the backup lockbox, and I ended up sending them a little gift, right? That's a hidden cost, right? I want them to be happy. I want them to, leave a 5-star review. So now we are going to talk about co-hosting. And then you guys, if you have any questions as we go through this presentation, please definitely save them for the end. I am going to leave time for you guys to do some Q&A. All right, so co-hosting, a little different from self-managing. It's essentially like you have an assistant, okay? This is a term that was created by Airbnb, and you can attach them to your Airbnb account. And a co-host really is, you can have them do whatever task you want them to do. And some co-hosts have a very structured business model, and this is how they run it. And this is what they do for you. And this is what they don't do for you. And they have those expectations set if they're very experienced. Other co-hosts, it's like, hey, I'm hiring you as an assistant. I need you to help me with all of these parts of the business, right? So there is that flexibility of what is the co-host going to help you with. However, legally, they really can't handle the flow of the money, the taxes, that part. They do need to be licensed for that part. So you have to handle all of your accounting, taxes, permits, all of that good stuff. But they can handle all the guest care, communication, dealing with the cleaners. If they're boots on the ground too, and they're not remote, they could do property checks. They could do runs. It just depends if they're local or not. Some pros about this is you can really decide who's going to do what. And that may shift from time to time. If you go on vacation, they need to do more while you're gone, or you want to be mostly involved, but you need that backup for after hours, you can set that up. Okay. And, it's just great if you have limited time, but you still want control. Okay. And it is lower cost than hiring like a full service property management typically. Some cons would be, they don't always have the expertise compared to a professional property manager. You're going to still have to oversee things. You're going to have to train them. There's going to be, what I would call like alignment meetings that need to happen regularly so that you guys can stay on the same page. You can get monthly, weekly, daily updates from them. It is going to be like having a direct report essentially. An average cost can be anywhere from 10 to 30% of revenue, depending on their scope. And, some hidden costs could be like training, onboarding, really getting them set up, to run the business how you want them to. And they may have extra charges. Like if you have them overseeing maybe like a remodel or in the off season, you want them to project manage that could be, additional charges, or just make sure you're reading the contract and you know what they charge for. Some co-hosts, they charge for every trip to the property if they're boots in the ground. So just really understanding they're all so different. There's no standard really. There's no regulation. You've really got to understand and be aligned with whoever you're hiring for co-host. All right. So our last and final option would be hiring full service property management, a professional company that's going to handle everything. So listings, marketing, pricing, bookings, all the guest care, cleaning, maintenance, everything from A to Z. Typically a full service property management company is going to handle for your vacation rental business. It's very clear to make the distinction that the property manager will help with them. Let me say this, every property manager has a different set of, standards of how they care for your property. Some say, okay, you need to have all of these service contracts in place. Like you need to have an AC service contract. You need to have landscaping. You need to have pool care, jacuzzi care. You need to have all of those things. Others may include jacuzzi care or lawn care. It just depends on the property manager, but typically a property manager is going to handle everything for your vacation rental business itself. But the discussion needs to happen regarding the care and the maintenance of the home, because they may just change air filters every month, but there may be a whole slew of things that they're not going to do. So a property manager is, some pros of them is it can be just hands off. My company, Stela, we have properties Tennessee to Florida, and our clients pretty much are absent investors that use their property as a true vacation home. They get to come vacation, we clean it after they leave, and then they just get a check every month. We are very intensive in how we care for our homes and the level of guest care. And, they're just completely hands off. So also another pro would be like they're professional, right? They have the expertise. They know how to optimize. They know all the tips and tricks, and they have an established brand, tools, teams, the best software. If you're hiring a good one. There are many property managers out there that are subpar, so you really want to do your homework, okay, with just like anything else. Some cons, it's typically the highest cost. You can lose control over branding decisions. Now, some property managers will tailor things to your needs. Others are just like, nope, this is how we run it. This is our model and this is what we do. So you just want to have those conversations. And sorry, I put it on here is that shouldn't be there. I didn't take that out, but average cost would be 10 to 30% of revenue, depending on the scope. I would say average is around 20%, unless it's a really high grossing property. Typically you can get less. A lot of people see the company Evolve. Evolve is not a full service management company. It is essentially like a listing service. They sell you as 10% full service, but it's really just a calendar management, and they build your listings and market it. So you'd probably be better off doing self-managing with co-hosting than going with a platform like that, to be honest. And then hidden cost is, service add-ons, markups, repairs. Every property manager does it differently. So again, you just want to have those conversations. So just some tips for finding the right partner. You want to ask for references. You really want to go through their reviews, look at their reviews in depth on all channels on their website. Definitely always review your contracts. If you ever want to talk to me about a contract or a company that you're interviewing, I would be happy to look at that with you and, just talk about it, okay? And see if it's going to be the right fit for you. Ensure clear communication about listing ownership and access. Okay, so you just want to make sure that you understand who owns the listing, what the access is. And I want to touch on something, when you're self-managing and you're co-hosting, you own that listing, right? So that physical listing account is yours. And typically when you hire a property manager, the property manager owns the listing. So if you were to leave them, you would have to essentially start over with your listing. They don't really transfer those, okay? You want to go to your referral partners. So realtors, investor groups, your local short-term rental networks. Each city typically has like a short-term rental network. The Savvy group, we have all the people. We know the best of the best, and we can put you in touch with whoever you need to be in touch with. So you can always reach out to us. And just sharing some company types. So like there's boutique property managers. They give that personalized service. That's like my company, Stela. We're really like in touch, with our owners, what their needs are, what they want, how they want their property managed, some do's, some don'ts. And then you have like the national brands that are property managers, and that's great if you want like a lot of scalability. You don't really care about control. And then you have co-host networks, platforms. Co-host is really, there's networks out there of co-hosts. And again, that's Airbnb's program that they created. Okay. So just some tips and tricks to find the right partner. It's really just about finding the right fit, someone who you feel that you're confident they're going to give you the results you need. And they have the history and the skills to be able to back that up. Right. So that is really what I wanted to share with you guys on about the different journeys, that you could choose. Before you go and you buy a short-term rental, you really want to know, what am I doing from here, right? So I'm going to go buy a property, but what's the plan after I close? And you want to have that all set up before closing. You want to know exactly what's going to happen so you don't waste any time from when you close to when you get that property live. You know exactly what's going to happen, the expectations of every party involved. And, that way you're not carrying that place and you're making money. Every day you're not rented is cash flow not coming in and it's costing you money. So, hope this helps you with making a decision. So I put my QR code here. You can scan to connect with me. This is all my contact info. And I just want to stop here and, open it up. What questions you guys have, you're welcome to put those in the chat. Well, if I could access the chat. If anybody wants to come off mute and ask a question, that'd be good because I'm having trouble with getting to the Q&A. My apologies. All right, Lucas says, what are the main vacation rental markets you're working with now? For property management, is that what you're asking, Lucas? For property management, I'll touch on both. We have Tennessee, North Georgia, Blue Ridge, Florida, Northeast Florida, down to Orlando. So pretty much like the whole little southeast corner, right? Tennessee, Georgia, Florida. That's the states that my company, Stela, that we manage in. And then for real estate, I really just focus on Florida. So pretty much from like Amelia Island, Jacksonville, Ponte Vedra, St. Augustine, Palm Coast, Daytona, Orlando, that like, the start of Florida, pretty much down to Orlando. That's my sweet spot. I've been born and raised here. So everything is kind of within about an hour and a half north or south of me. And that's really where I like to work for the real estate side of things because I know it so well. But yeah, good question. Hopefully that answers your question. But Savvy as a whole, we are again across the country. So if you're interested in another market, I've got people all over. We've got realtors, we've got other property managers, we've got co-hosts, we've got everybody in pretty much every top vacation rental market. You want to go to the Poconos, you want to go to Nashville, you want to, why am I brain dead right now? But any market you want to go to for vacation rentals, we absolutely do have people for that. Good question. Thank you for asking. All right, if you want to come off mute or drop it in the chat, happy to answer more questions. Don't be afraid. Any questions? I would love them.
So I was curious, I know you just went through like the differences. What pointers do you have on like creating a good team when you decide to self-manage? I know you went through some of that, but like I'm getting ready to launch a property and I'm pretty sure I want to self-manage to start. I'm starting to interview, you know, just cleaners, handyman, landscaping, all that kind of stuff. Like,
good question.
What are your like top tips for that?
Well, the first thing would be getting referrals. And when you get those referrals, asking them why they referred that person to you. Because, you know, in Facebook and those groups, you're going to just get people who tag all their besties, right? So understanding, can that person actually deliver the results that I need? And, you know, first of all, you're probably going to go through a few in the beginning to start, unless you're really, really doing this due diligence. And, you know, if you have, like, let's say you've got someone in the market that's already successful and is already self-managing, and they just give you their team, which a lot of people don't do because they want their team for them because they've built that team. But let's say that they do, you know, then obviously it's kind of like copy paste and you tweak it to, you know, what you want. But the top people that you're going to need to hire are, you're absolutely going to need a maintenance person. Okay. Someone that can between $75 and $125 an hour, you know, work with you on things, because there's going to be little things. Guests rip curtain rods down, guests clog toilets, you know, guests do little weird things that are just annoying, but that you don't want to call a plumber for it. So you want to have someone who's a maintenance person, or even a runner. A runner could be someone who is handy. They're not quite a full handyman, but they're like, oh, I can take the plunger over and see if I can get it unstopped. So I'm not spending $300 on calling a plumber, right? So a runner, a maintenance person for handyman stuff. And then absolutely you're going to need cleaners. I would start with at least 2 cleaning companies. I would try them both out. Give them both a chance, pay them for their work, but see their quality of work, right? And you could start with, initially when you're launching your property, start with a deep clean. Okay. You can get the first company in there to do the deep clean. That's not going to be cheap, you know, to get it really to standards to where it needs to be to launch it. But then, you know, give the other cleaner a try on a turn and see, you know, just how their communication is. Everyone, I feel like, you can get people to give you good quality work with coaching, but the biggest thing I find with cleaners is their attitude and their mindset of when you give them feedback or when you need something from them. Are they like, yes, okay, no problem? Or are they making excuses or, you know, giving you a reason of why that didn't happen? Or, you know, just it's the mindset. And the cleaners that I have, I work with 5 main companies pretty much here in Florida because of just the amount of properties we have. And they are with me because of their attitudes, because it's like a, no matter what, we get it done. We work as a team, no excuses. We solve problems. Don't come to me and waste my time talking about excuses. It's like, what's the solution? Okay. So for the cleaners, it's really who has the right mindset and who can keep that standard high. And with cleaners, you have to keep them accountable. There has to be checks and balances, because every cleaner starts out really good. And then there's the dive, right? You've got to keep them at a place. So having checklists, having checks and balances, having an inspector, someone to double check their work, making them provide you photos and videos after each turn. All of those things are going to keep them strong. Okay. And then, so I would say that those are your main people, but then you do, if it's a single family home, you will want, you know, someone that can do pool care if you have pools, or jacuzzis, someone who can do lawn care. You know, you want to keep like an AC service contract if you're in hotter climates. Keep those AC service, because a lot of times in hotter climates, guests will freeze up the AC units. So you're keeping those in good working order. They're about $200 a year for an AC service contract, where they come a couple times, clean the drain lines, you know, just make sure everything is in good working order. You'll want to have a plumber and electrician contact as well. just so that if something does happen, you've got someone, you've got an account set up. Same with the AC company, because if you just have to go find someone and call them blindly in an emergency, they don't care about you. You're not an existing customer. They haven't done business with you. They don't know who you are. You're going to the bottom of the list. Okay. So you've got to have those relationships with these people in advance, because stuff will happen. It's not a matter of if, it's when it's going to happen. And you could have a brand new build and stuff can still happen. Okay. So just having those people in advance, keep a spreadsheet of all your vendor contacts. But yeah, it's really going to be setting them up from the start. If it's a cleaner, for example, with, okay, here's my checklist, here's the procedures, here's how I want you to operate this, here's what I want stocked, I want photos and videos, I need all of these things. Can you deliver this? Great. Try them out. You might have to go through a few, but don't be afraid to fire too. If you've given them the coaching and the checks and the balances and they're still not meeting your expectations, and their attitude isn't that they're going to solve it, don't be afraid to fire them. Don't waste time. This is a business. You have to run it like a business, and you cannot sacrifice your guest satisfaction for giving someone chance after chance to show that they can perform and give you the results that you need. That's a good question.
That was very helpful.
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing I see is just setting them up right from the start and giving them here's everything I'm going to need from you. Can you do this or not? Great. Okay, let's work together. No? All right, next. And then just checking them, because we're all humans. We all do more when someone's watching. That's just how it is. So if they know that they can slack, they will. All right. What other questions do you guys have? We have about 5 more minutes. Want to make sure I answer all your burning questions. All right. No more questions. And I am so grateful you guys joined. Thank you so much. Again, I will just share with you guys my QR code so that if you want to connect with me, whether you just want to pick my brain or connect on real estate markets or management or any of the above, happy to help you guys. I'm Nikki Rosenberg. Thank you so much for your time. Have a beautiful week and happy holidays. Thank you guys. Bye, Ray. Bye, Lucas. Bye, Jordan, Julie.